In today's video, I'm going to be taking you through the basics of using pods alongside Elementor Pro. So if you've ever fancied creating a more complex dynamic website using WordPress but didn't know how to start, then this video is definitely for you. Well, my name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, the channel where I help you get more from WordPress. If this is your first time on the channel and you like what we do around here, please consider hitting that subscribe button and smashing that bell icon to be notified every time we add new content. Okay, so let's get started by jumping over into the dashboard and taking a look at the tools we're going to be using. So let's kick this part off by taking a look at the kind of thing we're going to create with pods. So this is a typical archive page. We've created this through Elementor, and as you can see, we've got our vehicles listed, we've got some details underneath, and if we click and take a look at the vehicle, we'll go through to a custom single post type with a custom layout, and if we scroll down, everything looks the way you'd expect it to, but we also have some additional custom fields that are all set up and created through pods. So while we've got the normal things like the featured image, the author, the title and so on, we have some extra information like the manufacturer, the fuel type. If we scroll down, we've got a custom gallery inside there, and we've also got a specification section. Now these are custom fields set up inside pods, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to recreate something very similar to this. Now if you're new to the concept of tools like pods, let me just explain briefly what they do. There are two aspects to pods. The first aspect is we can create custom post types, custom taxonomies, all those kinds of things. Now this is a way of creating custom posts in the post type, and taxonomies, which are basically ways of grouping things together. If you've used WordPress and you used the blog section to create posts, you'll know you have categories and tags inside there. Now categories and tags are effectively taxonomies. This is the term that kind of overlies those different types of ways of organizing your content. Well, pods allows us to do that. The second thing it allows us to do with those custom post types, with those taxonomies, or with existing post types and pages inside WordPress, is we can add our own custom meta fields. Now what exactly is a meta field? It's just the same kind of thing you normally used to see it inside the posts or pages section inside WordPress itself. Things like the title, the featured image, things along those lines. They are basically meta fields. We can use pods to add our own custom ones either into the existing posts inside WordPress or by creating a custom post type inside WordPress and then assigning them. I hope that makes sense. And throughout this video, we'll be demonstrating this kind of concept, so you'll see exactly by the end of it what I'm talking about in action, and you'll be able to create this kind of thing yourself. Now for this tutorial, we're going to be using pods alongside Elementor and Elementor Pro. Now the reason we're using Elementor Pro is fundamentally we want to tap into the theme builder that comes with that particular application. This means we can link the data we want to create inside pods through to our actual design by using Elementor Pro's theme builder. This is just a nice, simple way of using this visual editing platform to be able to create something a little bit more unique and tap into the power of tools like pods. So I've gone ahead and installed both of those. So you can see I've got Elementor, the free version, Elementor Pro, so we have the options for dynamic data and the theme builder, and pods. So once we've got those installed, we're now ready to start creating our first custom post type alongside creating the meta fields and things that go with it. Now I've already gone ahead and installed the key plugins that we're going to use for this particular video. So with pods installed, you can see we have a new entry on the left hand side in our dashboard, and that's for the pods admin. There's a couple of options we have in there, but all we're really interested in right now is the add new option. So we're going to click on add new. And once we do that, we can see we've got two different options we can choose from. We can create new, which allows us to create post types, taxonomies, and custom settings pages, or we can extend an existing one. So let's just say, for example, we wanted to add some extra meta fields onto the posts option that's part of WordPress. You could use the extend existing option. However, if you want to start from scratch by creating your own custom post types, your own custom taxonomies, then create new is the option for you. That's what we're going to use in this particular video. So we're going to say create new. Once we do that, that now takes us in and we can go through what is basically a very simple wizard that allows us to choose exactly what kind of post type or what kind of pod we want to create. So the first thing we have is the content type. Now everything inside pods has a little question mark by the side of it, which gives you a little help pop-up that tells you exactly what something does or what it's there for. And if you want to find out more, you can click on the find out more link. So let's take a look at the first option, the content type. You can see the first option is custom post type, like your posts or your pages. However, if we wanted to, we could create a taxonomy, things like categories and tags, or we could create a custom settings page. For this example and for this video, we're going to keep it really simple and straightforward, and we're going to create our own custom post type. So we're going to choose that option. Then we've got the single label. So we're going to call this car. And for the plural, we're going to call it cars. Now, if you want to, you can expand this out to go to the advanced option, and you can see we can create a custom pod name. So if you were using car somewhere else on your site, it's a good idea to create a custom pod name that's specific to your particular pod so you don't have any conflicts in the future. However, because this is really simple and straightforward, we'll leave that as car. That's the only custom pod we're going to create anyway. Click on next step, and that'll take us through now where we can start creating and setting up all the various different aspects of our meta fields, the labels, the admin UI, and so on. Now, this might seem daunting to start off with when you look at all those different tabs across the top and some of the options that are available. You may be thinking, I don't really know where to go with this, and it all looks really confusing and quite scary. But don't worry, because a lot of it, probably 90% of it, we can leave as is. We don't need to make any changes. Now, before we take a look at managing our fields and creating new fields, let's take a look at these other tabs just to see what's in there and hopefully dispel some of that fear you may have just by looking at it for the first time. So the labels option, if we come in there, these are all the different labels you can assign to the various different aspects of your navigation, your dashboard, and so on. Most of these should be self-explanatory because all they are labels. They don't do anything. If you put something in there and you make a mistake, you can come back in and change it. It's not going to have any real impact upon anything you do because they're just labeling various different sections. So for example, you can see we've got cars and car, which is what we put in the first stage of this wizard. If we wanted to change those, we could change those right now. If we wanted to, where it says add new, instead of just leaving the default text that WordPress would put in there to add a new car in, we could put something specific in there. So we could say create a new car, design a new car, whatever you kind of wanted. So these are just labels for all those different aspects. Like I say, you are more than welcome to leave them as they are, and it doesn't have any real effect. Next up, we've got the admin UI. Now, this is where we've got some options for how we want this to actually work and interact with the admin of our site. So you can see we've got things like post type description, where we can put a little description of what this particular post type relates to. If you've got multiple different post types, multiple different pods, it may be useful to put descriptions in there so you can sort of see exactly what each one relates to if you've got slightly ambiguous naming. Show admin UI. All it really means is show this in the dashboard. Show admin menu in dashboard. So like I say, most of these are self-explanatory and you can fundamentally leave them exactly as they are. If you want to put a menu icon in there, you can put that in. So where we've got all these little icons on the left-hand side in the dashboard, we can create or put our own custom ones in there. And we can use different dash icon things and so on. I'm not going to worry about that. We'll leave it with the default little pin icon. But if you wanted to, you could easily use a dash icon. Show in navigation menu, show in admin new menu bar, which is basically this section at the top here. It's entirely up to you. Set those up as you want to. Again, if you make a mistake or you want to change something, you can easily come back into the admin UI section and change anything you put in there. Next, we have the advanced options, and we click to open that up. Now you can see most, again, of the options inside here either have help on them or they're self-explanatory what they do. So for example, public, is it available to the public? Can it be queried? In other words, can you search against it? Is it available inside the search if you have a site search? The capability, and all that really means is it going to be treated as a post? Is it going to be treated as a page? Or is it going to be treated as a custom capability? Because this is going to be treated like a normal post, even though it's a custom post type, we'll just leave that set to post. Now, the next option we want to enable that isn't enabled straight out of the box is the enable archive page. Now the reason for this is we're going to create a custom archive to list our vehicles as part of the templates inside Elementor Pro. If we don't enable the archive page option, which is off by default, when it comes to using the conditions inside the templates inside Elementor Pro, you won't see anything to do with the car's custom post type that we're creating. Now, don't worry if that sounds confusing. All I would say is if you want to create a custom archive for your pods, check that box. It becomes available to you then inside Elementor Pro's theme builder. So, do we need to change anything else? Not really. We can pretty much leave everything we want on there. What I do want to draw attention to, though, is the supports section. And this is basically where we go through and choose what are the default post type elements do we want to enable. So if you take a look at this, you'll see you've got things like title and editor. They are supported. In other words, they're switched on. We've then got things like the author, featured image, and so on. So if you consider what a normal post page would look like inside the dashboard of WordPress, you'll generally see all of these options inside there, where we can disable what we don't want and enable what we do want. So for this example, we're going to leave title and editor intact, and we're also going to enable the featured image, but everything else is going to be left turned off. So we're going to leave those off, so we simplify the interface and only let people control and input the information that we want them to put in. Then we've got things like the built-in taxonomies. Like I already said, taxonomies are just an effective way of grouping things together, and WordPress by default has categories and tags. They are taxonomies. If you create your own custom taxonomy, which you can do with pods, you could enable that and link the two together to make sure that they know that this particular taxonomy relates to this particular custom post type. Now, I'm not going to cover that in this video, but we will take a look at that in a future video on pods where we expand upon these fundamentals we're going to cover in today's video. So we can leave that unchecked and we can just say we've got everything there now set up. We're going to leave the auto template options in the REST API because they're beyond the scope of what I want to cover in this specific video. But we are going to come back to our manage fields option. And from here, we can start creating the fields that we want. Now, we can say, first of all, add field. So the first thing we're going to do is go through the relevant different steps that we need to create this field and specify what it is, what we want to put in there, and how we want to work with it. So the first thing is the label. This is basically the name, the public facing name that you're going to see inside the dashboard. So what we're going to say is for this one, this is going to be vehicle manufacturer. If we click then underneath onto the name, you'll see it automatically pre-fills out based upon the label, getting rid of any capital letters and replacing any spaces with underscores. Now these names are pretty useful because if you want to reference this particular custom field, that's the unique name associated with it. Now, like I say, we're not going to cover that in this video, but in future videos where you may have to use different plugins that want to reference a specific field, meta field name, this is what they're referring to. Description, optional. If you want to put something in there, you can do. Next up, we've got the option for the field type. And in here, we've got a range of different options. You can see we can go to things like website, phone, email, password, WYSIWYG visual editors, date, time, and so on and so forth. Now, lots of these have a lot more options hidden underneath them when you choose them. So for example, we want to create a simple drop-down list where someone can select the manufacturer of this particular vehicle that we're putting in. Now, if you look at this, you may be thinking, well, where exactly do I go for that? There's nothing on there for a select list. And if you're coming from something like advanced custom fields, this might be a little confusing because they're kind of grouped together under different sections. So unfortunately, you can't see this one because it's slightly outside of my screen, but the option we have is called relationships. I'm going to click on that. Once we do that, it opens up and says, what is it related to? We can click and you can see again, we've got a whole range of different options inside here for the types of relationships we can set up. Now for this example, we are keeping it incredibly simple. We're just going to choose a simple custom defined list. And what this means is we can define the values that are going to be appearing in there. Okay, so with that in place, we now need to put in the values that we want to work with. So we can just simply put in any of the names that we want for the vehicle types that we're going to work with. So I'm just going to simply copy and paste that in. So you can see all I've done is a new line for each one of the manufacturers. So we've got Ford, Audi, BMW, and so on. If we expand that out, you can see they're all listed there. Is this required? Yes, because we need to make sure that they choose a manufacturer for the vehicle. If we go to additional field options, this is where we can fine tune and configure things if we need to. So you can see we've got selection type. We can click and open that up, and we've got single select and multiple select. Single select will allow you to only choose one value, which is what we'd want to do with this because a car is not going to have multiple manufacturers. But if you wanted that multiple select, you can just choose that at this point. Next up, we've got the format. We can choose from things like drop down, radio buttons, autocomplete, and so on. We'll leave that as a drop down. Then we've got the default selection text. In other words, what do we put in there before you make a selection? So we're just going to say, please choose. Jump over to advanced, and if you need to, you can configure various different aspects inside there. For example, CSS classes, default values, and so on. We don't need to do anything. We're going to leave that as is. And again, the REST API is more advanced than we need to cover in this video. It's specific to working with the API for WordPress itself. So we can leave that out of this. We'll say save field, and that's our first field created. We're now going to go on and create a couple more. So let's add another field in. Again, we're going to give this a label. This one's going to be vehicle fuel. Click underneath, automatically pre-fills that out. Description, we're not going to worry about there either. Again, we're going to choose the relationship field. Simple is perfectly fine, and then we're going to just copy in the values for the different fuel types. So you can see we've got petrol, diesel, hybrid, and electric. Again, we want this to be required. If we jump to the additional field options, we can come in here and we can just do the same thing again. So we can say we'll leave it to single select, drop down, put in our default text. Advanced, we don't need to change anything inside there. When you do, you're going to save that. And the next one now is we're going to create a different kind of field type. So we're going to say add field type. This one's going to be where we could put specifications about the particular vehicle. So we'll drop in the label, click in for the name to be pre-filled out. Change this time from plain text. We're going to come down to the WYSIWYG visual editor. Again, we're going to set this to be required. Jump with the additional field options, and now we can choose what type of editor do we want. TinyMCE is the default editor you would have seen in the classic editor inside WordPress. So it allows you to do things like bold, italic, underline, drop links in, and all those kinds of things. You can, if you want to, you can choose from a second option, which is the CL editor, but it's entirely up to you which one you would prefer. We can then go through and choose editor options. Do we want to allow people to insert images and other kinds of media into this section? I'm going to say no, because I just want this to be formatable text. Then we've got some output options, which we are going to leave exactly as they are. So we'll save that field. So that's our next field created. And what we're going to do now is create our final field, which is basically a gallery of images that we're going to use for our particular car. So again, we'll drop in the name, the label, description is perfectly fine. Plain text this time, we're going to come down, we're going to choose file, image, and video. Required, we're going to leave that unchecked because you don't have to upload these extra images if you don't want to. Additional field options, again, give us a range of different things. And as you can see, this is a more complex kind of layout, so it has more options available to you. First thing we've got is what kind of upload limit do you want to apply? We can set this to be single file or multiple files. For our example, we want multiple because we want to create a gallery. Then we've got the file uploader. So you can see we've got upload and or select media library, or you can just have upload only. I'm going to let people use the media library if they want to and choose their images from there, just so we can reuse images as and when we need to. Then you've got default attachment tab. So we're going to say we want that to go into the media library. Editable title, you can leave those things if you want to. You can limit the maximum number of files. So if you want to make sure that people only upload, say, 8 files at most, you can set a value inside there. You can choose any kind of restrictions you want on your file types, create custom ones if you want to as well. And then you can see we've got the list style. And this is just basically how is the sort of data going to be represented inside the actual dashboard inside your custom post type. You've got 2 options, rows and tiles. I prefer tiles because it means we can have a thumbnail of each of the images next to each other and it just looks visually easier to work with. Then we can go through, we've got the add button text, modal title and modal add button text, which all sounds very complicated and convoluted. All it really means is what's written on the button for the end user to see when they click on it. So we can leave that as is if we want to, and then we can just come over, make sure under advanced that everything is set up inside there, choose anything we need to configure. Other than that, we'll say save our field, and then we'll say save our pod. And that's now created our new custom post type. If we take a look on the left hand side, you can see we've now got a new section called cars, and inside there we've got the option for all cars, where we can list all the cars we've created and add it to our website, or we can add a new one directly in there. And that's what we're going to take a look at next. We're going to put some information data in there so we can see how this works, and then we're going to move on and start creating the templates to output this data inside the theme builder of Elementor Pro. Now we're into our cars section, our new custom post type, and as you can see, we currently have no data inside here, no sample vehicles. So let's rectify that. Let's click to add a new vehicle. And this now shows us exactly what we've created. This is our new custom post type. You can see we've got our title and we've got our normal content and also the featured image, which are the default things that we pulled in and set up inside our custom post type. Underneath that, we've also got our custom fields, our meta fields. You can see our drop-down list where we can choose from the vehicle manufacturer, the vehicle fuel type, drop in the specifications and add files for our gallery. So let's do just that. Let's create our first car. So we're going to call this one, this is the TT Sport. And just drop in some filler text, set our featured image. And what I'm going to do, you can see this takes us in so we can just choose the image we want to insert. So it's just upload a couple of images. And we're going to drag and drop those in. So we've got a couple of vehicle pictures. Once they've uploaded, we can choose the car that we want. So this is the TT. We'll set our featured image. You can see that pulls that in. And now we can go through and set any of the additional data that we want as part of our custom post type. So first of all, let's just say this is Audi. We're going to go through and say this is a petrol vehicle. We'll drop in the specifications. We'll just copy and paste that data in there. and we'll add some files for this now. So I'm going to choose the first one, choose the second one, add our files, and you can see that now displays the images we're going to use as part of our gallery. So that's how easy it is to just input this data. So I'm going to publish this. That creates our first car. I'm going to do that again now for our second one, and then we're going to take a look at creating that archive page ready to start displaying the vehicles that we've added to our custom post types. Now that we've created our first couple of vehicles, we need to create those pages that will display that information. Now, first of all, the theme that I'm using is the Hello theme, which is a free theme and works great with Elementor. Basically, it's an empty theme that just really satisfies WordPress's need to have a theme installed, but we can design everything we want about it. So what I've done is I've already gone ahead, put a header section in and a footer section in. We just now need to put the actual content in there. So coming back into our dashboard, what we're going to do is come down to our template section. We're going to come into the theme builder. Once we're inside the theme builder, you can see there's my default header and footer that I've created for us. We now need to go through and create the archive page. Now the archive page is where we'll list all the vehicles. So what we're going to do, click on archive. Once we've done that, we're going to say add new archive. That'll take us through and allow us to name it and choose what kind of template we want to create. Because we've chosen the archive tab, it already knows we're going to create an archive. So we're just going to call this default vehicle archive and then say create template. Once we've done that, that'll take us then through into Elementor. And if we want to, we can use any of the pre-designed archives. We can just use those as a starting point, or we can use them as they are. For this example though, we're going to get rid of that and we're going to start completely fresh. We're going to create our own custom archive page. So what we're going to do, you can see on the left hand side now with our widgets, we've got 3 widgets that are specific to archive pages. Because we've set an archive template up, it knows we're probably going to want to use one of those. So let's just drag in the archive posts and drop that onto our page. Now it says, can't find what you're looking for. Well, that's because it doesn't really know what we're looking for at the moment. So what we can do is we can come down to the settings section on the left hand side, and you can see it says preview settings. Click on there. At the moment it's set to look for recent posts, which is not what we want. We want to display the cars. So what we're going to do is click on there and you can see it says cars archive. Now if you remember back when we were creating our custom post type, I said make sure you check that option that says has an archive, otherwise you wouldn't see that option inside here. So we say cars archive and we'll say apply and preview. Then that will show there's our vehicles, there's our details, and our archive page is starting to take shape. So what we're going to do, let's just add a little bit of space around this by just coming to advanced. We're going to just uncheck the link for the padding, put a little bit of space in below and above, and then we're going to do come back in and choose our widget. We're going to change this skin over to something a bit fresher. We're going to choose cards as an option. We're going to set this to have a columns of 2. Now you can see we already have a nice looking archive page, but we can go through and fine tune and tweak this to get it exactly how we want. First things first, let's make those images a little larger so they look a lot better. We're going to then come down, we're going to say we're going to change the excerpt length to be 35, remove the metadata that we don't want to display on there, remove the read more, and we're going to remove those categories. Even though nothing is showing up on there, we'll just disable the badge. Okay, so we've now got the beginnings of our archive set up, our template. What we need to do now is just publish this, and then we can set any conditions we want to associate with it. So let's click publish, then we can add our condition. Now all a condition is a set of rules that have to be adhered before this template will be referenced and used. So what we want to do, we don't want this to be used on all archives. We want this to be used just on the cars. So we're going to click on all archives, and you can see at the bottom we have cars archive. So we're going to click on that. If we wanted to add a second condition or a third condition in, we could do that if we wanted to. However, this matches the criteria that we want. So we're going to say save and close. And that's it. We've now created the archive for our cars. Let's take a look at that in action. First thing we need to do is come out of this, exit to our dashboard, and we're going to just update our navigation to have that option available. So we're going to come into appearance and down into menus. Now to do this, we're going to create a custom link because we want to reference that archive page that it knows is going to be displaying the vehicles. So what we need to do is create a custom link, and from there we're going to put our custom linking in. So we're going to come in, we're going to put a /. This just says it doesn't matter what domain this is associated with. So if you're building this on a temporary domain and then you want to move it over to your live domain, this just makes life easy because it doesn't have to put in a full domain. It just says go back to the root, and this is the template we want to reference. Now when we created our custom post type, we give it a name of car. So there we go, that's our URL, and we're just going to put in cars. Add that to our menu, save our menu, and then what we can do is we can jump over and take a look at that on our test site. There we go, we're on the home page, click on our cars menu item, That'll take us over, and there is our custom archive to show those cars. Now we've got one more thing we need to do. We need to create that single post layout, because currently this is what it looks like if we click and go in there. It's pretty basic, doesn't have the images, the gallery, or any of the extra details we set up as part of our custom post type. So we'll rectify that right now. So you've hopped back over in the dashboard, and what we're going to do is come back into our template section and down to theme builder one more time. From there, we're going to choose single, and we're going to say add new single. Now single is basically the template that will show an individual post. So in this example, we want this to be a custom layout for our cars. So we're going to say car is the select post type we want to reference, and we're just going to call this default single cars. Create our template, and again, what this will do is it'll load up Elementor, load in any templates we may have available to us, which if you see nothing on here and you want to use a template, what you can do is simply come over to this left-hand side, scroll down until you find a single post, click on there, and you'll see that pulls in the templates which we can use. You could, if you wanted to, create a blank starting point like we did with the archive, and then create this and build this out yourself. For this example, I just want to show you the second way of doing it, which is using one of the templates and how we can just tweak that to get it to sit exactly how we want it to be. So let's insert this template that I'm going to use. That will automatically pull in some of the data to do with a post. Now this doesn't know it's a custom post type, it just knows it's a post. So you can see it'll pull in the featured image, it'll pull in the title, it'll pull in the meta information that it knows is associated with it, such as the author, the time it was posted, and those kinds of things, and also some other information. So we need to expand upon this or get rid of things that we don't need. For this example, we're just going to get rid of this section at the top. So we're going to right click and we're going to delete to that. Do the same thing then if we want to with this section for the meta fields, or we can use those as a starting point for our own custom data. And that's what we're going to do. So at the moment you can see we've got this edit post info. Let's get rid of the time, let's get rid of the terms and the date and so on. Now we can click and you can see we've got options like author, date, time, the normal meta information you expect associated with the post inside WordPress. However, we can come down and choose custom. Once we do that, we now open up the option to start using dynamic data. And this is where the beauty of working with things like pods and advanced custom fields and those kinds of tools, we can create these custom post types, insert custom metadata, and then we can pull those into our templating structure. So we've set this to be custom. We click on the little database icon for dynamic and scroll down to the bottom, and you can see we have a new section called pods. We have pods field and pods date field. We don't have any date field, so we don't need to worry about that. What we want is the pods field. You click on there. Now that just opens things up and it says you want to use a pods field, but right now nothing is displaying, and that's because we haven't told it which pods field we actually want to display. So what we need to do is click on the little wrench icon to the left of pods field name, click on there, then we have the key. Click to expand that, and you can see any of the pods meta fields that we've created that are referenceable will be listed here. So the first thing we want to do is say we want the vehicle manufacturer. So we're going to click on there. That will then put in Ford for this particular car. Obviously, that doesn't mean anything to anybody, so we need to put something to preface this. If we come to advanced, you can see we've got before, after, and fallback. So whatever we put in before will come before the custom pods field. Anything we put in after will come after. And if we know that this could have blank values, we could put a fallback value in there. So before, we're going to say manufacturer. Put a full colon and a space. And you'll see that now updates. So we've now got manufacturer and Ford. So that now suddenly starts to make a lot more sense. So that's the first one done. What we can do if we want to is also put an icon in there. If we wanted to, we could also make this linkable. We're going to uncheck that because they don't want this to be a link. But if you wanted to, you could set a dynamic link in there, or you could hard code a link in if you wanted to as well. We do want to set an icon though. So let's click on there. You can see we've got default or we've got custom. Let's just choose custom. Now we can just pull in the icon library that's part of Elementor, or we could upload our own SVG file if we wanted a specific icon. So let's pick an icon that we think is going to work. So we're going to find a tag and we'll click to add that in. We'll insert that. There you go. You see that now updates on there. What we can do now is we can come up to this and we can duplicate. Custom is all perfectly fine. So what we need to do now is just change what field is going to be referenced. This time we want vehicle fuel. And we're going to change the label as well to fuel type. And with that done, we've created our custom meta information. We can quickly come in and style that if we want to. So we're just going to adjust the space in between those. We'll adjust the size of the icon and the color of the icons. We'll set that to be a red color, just so it stands off a little bit. And we'll come into the text and we'll just make that slightly larger, just so it stands off a little better and a little bit more bold. Okay, so we've created those. Let's just, one more thing, let's just go back, sorry, to our list and quickly change that icon. We want to change that, and we'll put this oil can in for our fuel, insert that. And finally, we'll just come into the icon and make that just a little larger. And there we go. So we've now created our first set of pod data directly inside our template. So let's scroll down now and create some more. So the next thing we want to do is we want to drop in our gallery. Let's simply come over, and we've got the new Elementor Pro 2.7, and this gives us a much better gallery. So we're going to drag and drop that below our body text. And if we take a look on the left hand side, you can see under our settings section, we've got the dynamic option again. So we click on there, and this time we get a different range of options we can choose from. We're just going to reference anything to do with images. So any gallery kind of pods that we've created, they will be listed here. Just makes the whole process a lot easier because we don't get inundated with data that's irrelevant. So we say pods gallery field, and then we just need to do the same thing again. Click on the little wrench icon, choose the key option, and then choose which particular gallery field that we want, just in case there's more than one. So we're going to choose vehicle gallery, and you can see that now starts to populate the data in our design. So what we're going to do is just fine tune this. So we set our columns to be 2, and we'll change our medium to large so we get a much better looking image. And if you want to fine tune any more of this, you can do exactly that. You can set it up any way you want to. However, we'll leave it as is. We're just going to simply come over and grab a title heading. I'm going to drop that above there. I'm going to change that to something like H5 because it's not as important, and we're going to call this gallery. Then we'll quickly come in and style that text. So we'll choose a dark grey. Typography, we'll just set that to be around 18. So that's a nice size. We'll set this to be uppercase, and then what we'll do is we'll put some extra letter spacing in there, just so it looks quite cool. Drop that down a little bit. Okay, so we're going to duplicate that now. We're going to drag and drop that underneath our gallery. We're going to change that. We're going to call this specifications. There we go. Now we're going to come back over. This time we're going to come down to our text editor option, drag and drop that underneath specifications. Again, we get our dynamic options. We can click inside there. I'm going to scroll down, choose our pods field, choose the wrench icon, change our key, this time to vehicle specifications. Once we've done that, you can see that pulls in the specifications, and now what we can do is we can style that. So we're going to come over, we're just going to put in 50 pixels of padding around there. We're going to say a background color of a very pale grey. Like I say, these are all just to show you the kinds of things that can be done more than worrying too much about the whole look of everything that we're doing. Set that a little darker, and we'll just put a width of 1 pixel around there. And we'll just finally come in and we'll style that text. We'll make it a little different. So we'll just make this slightly smaller because it's less important on the page. The weight, we can set that to, let's go for 400. That looks okay. And what we can also do, which is quite cool with Elementor, is we can set up a number of columns. So we can say we'll set that to 2 columns, and we'll adjust the column gap to say 50, somewhere around there. There we go. So we've now got a nice layout inside there, which will show the specification information about our particular vehicle. Now, if we hit publish, this will take us back over into our conditions, and where we can specify the conditions that have to be met to use this template. Now you can see, because it's working with an archive and we've already set up cars and so on, you can see it's intelligent enough to know that that's probably what you're going to want to display. However, if it doesn't, you can come in and you can choose from any of the tons of options that you have available to you for specifying exactly what conditions have to be met to use this template. In this instance, it's perfectly fine, cars and all. So we'll say save and close, and that's now saved our template for us. So we come back over to our test page. This is what we had originally. So now if we come back up and refresh this, we'll find now we get our much nicer looking layout that we've just created with our custom fields in, custom metadata, custom gallery, all these kinds of good things all inserted into our page. So again, come back into our car section. There's our archive page. Click and take a look at the Audi TT. You can see there's our picture. There's the manufacturer, the fuel type, all the details, the gallery that's associated with it, and the specifications. Well, there we go. That's how we can take WordPress, Elementor Pro and pods and start creating more dynamic WordPress websites. So what did you think of this? Have you learned something new? Have you ever used Pods or any of the other kinds of programs that do this in the past? If you have, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to get your feedback on this video and what we've covered. As always, all the applicable links will be in the description below, so you can check out and find out more about creating dynamic websites with Elementor Pro and WordPress. Well, my name's been Paul C. This has been WPTuts, and until next time, take care.